how
See,
old?
he even took care of it. See him there?
And how old?
He even took care of
Is
the
that your guinea
guinea
pig inside of the dog?
Yes. They snuggle together because
They're
Mercury's
kind of-
extremely warm.
They're kind of like matching colors. And how old?
Well, he died at 14.
Oh,
The guinea pigs are pretty new.
A good life, a good life. Yes. For big dogs too, don't big dogs usually have shorter
Yeah.
lifespans?
14's a long
14
time for golden.
Yeah, he lived a long time.
Yeah.
Hang on, let me just double check.
Good evening, and welcome to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board City Candidate Forum for the 3 at-large seats. My name is Kathy McComber. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, but not a resident of Minneapolis. I am pleased to be moderating this forum this evening. The League of Women Voters is a volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by voters, regardless of political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters Minneapolis, Make Voting a Tradition, and Standish-Erickson Neighborhood Association. The views expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters nor its co-sponsors endorse any candidates or political parties. We are holding this forum for voters to hear from the candidates and to compare their ideas. This forum is being held in front of a live audience at the Minneapolis Central Library and is being live streamed to the League of Women Voters Minneapolis YouTube channel. The recording of this forum will be available in its entirety after the forum and will have a closed caption option available in multiple languages. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn in this room and that no signs or literature be distributed during this event. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so everyone can hear the discussion. No private audio or video recording is allowed during this event. We also ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so the candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. And finally, please silence all electronic devices. The Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board is a semi-autonomous body responsible for managing the city's parks, recreational facilities, and green spaces. It operates separately from the City of Minneapolis with its own jurisdiction and funding. The Park Board develops park policies, hires the park superintendent, and enacts ordinances governing the use of the city's parks, recreation facilities, and green spaces. All candidates on the ballot were invited to the forum, and 7 are with us this evening. The candidates here today in alphabetical order are Matthew Dogwillow, Meg Forney, Amber Frederick, Mary McKelvey, Tom Olson, Adam Schneider, Averis Turner, and Michael Turner. Avery, I'm so sorry.
Michael Wilson. No, he's not here. She said he does Michael Turner.
Oh, all right, not Michael Turner, and it's Avery Turner. Thank you, Avery. We thank the candidates in advance for engaging in a respectful and civil discourse. We have timekeepers sitting in the front row so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements of 1 minute, each candidate will have up to 1 minute to answer each question and 30 seconds to make a closing statement at the end. The timekeeper will hold up a card wherein there is 15 seconds remaining and a stop card when time is up. When the stop card appears, candidates may finish their sentence and stop at that point. We expect this forum to last approximately 90 minutes. Questions from community members have been submitted in advance to the League of Women Voters. During the forum, we will take written questions from the audience until 15 minutes before the end of the forum. League of Women Voters and student volunteers, could you raise your hands? We'll gather questions and hand them to our question facilitators and then to the moderator. We ask that the questions be clear, pertinent to the issues at hand, within the scope of the office, and made in the form of a question, not a statement. All questions are carefully reviewed and rewritten when necessary to make sure that they're directed to all candidates, forward-looking, not hostile, and not of a personal nature. We look for a balance of topics that affect all of us, both locally and in the city as a whole. To get to as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category. We may consolidate questions of the same general topic. If you feel your question was not addressed, please follow up with the candidates after the forum. And finally, all submitted questions are the property of League of Women Voters Minneapolis. For the candidate's opening statement, we ask that they address the question, why are you running and what are your qualifications? Each candidate will have up to 1 minute, and the first candidate to speak is Mr. Dogwillow.
Am I supposed to use this? Is that better? All right, sounds echoey and loud, but I'll do my best. I'm Matt Dogwillow, and it's actually kind of cool. I got my first foray in politics when I was a little kid, and my mom used to organize League of Women Voters, so kind of fun. So I've always been an aspiring politician. I guess this is my first go at it. I came here from Wisconsin to go to the U. I studied economics and environmental science, and I did a lot of lake and water quality research. I even did some work with the Hiawatha Golf Course and worked for an organization called Tree Trust. Thank you. I guess I'm running for park board because I was encouraged to by some of my council members, and mostly because I found out that I was the only parent in the race who was currently raising little kids. I love my kids. I live here because of the parks, and I use them every day, and I didn't really know how much I valued them until I had kids and had to get them out of my house to not destroy it. And that's the end. Anyway, only parent, and that's what I hope to bring to the board.
Thank you. Candidate Forney?
Thank you. Yes, I am Meg Forney, and I have been humbled and so appreciative of the fact of serving all of you for 16 years as a commissioner at large. I did also preside for 3 years, and very grateful for that. My campaign is basically a three-legged stool. First of all, is equitable access. Equitable access specifically along our riverfront. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's also an area that is lacking in canopy cover of our trees, and therefore has the highest health disparities. And then my last part that I feel is very important is alternative revenue sources. They're all three very related, and that is what I wish to look to serve you in the next term. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick?
There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Frederick. I am proud to be your only DFL Labor and Women Winning endorsed candidate for the Park Board at large. I'm running because I believe that All girls in this city and all youth should have the opportunity to grow up strong in our park system. And I know that we have disparities that I feel uniquely poised to work towards. I'm a youth support specialist at the YMCA, so I spend my day-to-day working with young people experiencing homelessness in our city. And I know just how important our parks are to the vitality of our young people and to maintaining and building community inside of these systems. So I hope to earn your first choice vote as Commissioner at Large. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary McKelvey, and I am running because when I was thinking about who I would want to have serving on the board, I would want to have someone who has the experience that I bring to the board. I have been working with youth for 30 plus years. I have been a teacher, a licensed teacher of immigrant students, of ESL students. I've served in Robbinsdale District. I've also served in over 30 schools in Minneapolis as a substitute teacher. And I've worked for the Lopet Foundation at Worth Park for 15 years, and I'm currently working with BIPOC youth, a Northside Minneapolis team, and a Junior Lopet Franklin Middle School team, and I am getting more out of that than probably they are. I am uniquely poised to be at the front line of equity for children and for women and who understand what it's like to be using the parks and sports. I hope to earn your #1 vote as you learn more from me.
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Olson. I am one of your other at-large incumbents. I have spent the 12 years of my career working in and around politics and government. I currently, for my day job, work for the Minnesota House DFL, doing communications for the last 5 years. And I've tried to embody and bring those DFL values and progressive values to the park board over my 4 years as your commissioner. That has been embodied in my prioritization of taking climate action. As a park board, we can and should be on the forefront of both making our park system more resilient and also making sure that we are reducing our carbon imprint as much as possible. Second, I have fought against cuts and disinvestments in our youth investments. Youth engagement is a priority for mine, and I will continue to make that so for the next term. And finally, I want to use my intergovernmental experience to just be a good steward of our park board. It's already a very good system, and we need good intergovernmental leadership to ensure that it stays that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider.
Hi, everyone. My name's Adam Schneider. Like everyone else up here, I'm running for Minneapolis Park Board at Large. My background is in public policy and environmental justice. I have a master's certificate from Hamline University in public policy and decision making, and for the past 4 years, I've been working with people across Minneapolis to cut their energy bills and put food on their table by promoting community solar and urban agriculture opportunities. I'm running in part because of the current board's failures. Both the responses to Emerald Ash Borer and the park workers strike hurt Minneapolis residents and park workers alike, and I would like to see more responsible leadership in approaching issues like those. But I'm also running because of our park system successes, and I hope to build off of programs that deliver for Minneapolis residents, such as the Recreation Plus Childcare Program and the Community Garden Program. And I'm just simply running to create a park board that is rooted in community, advances climate and environmental justice, and closes the equity gaps we see in our city. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Turner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Avery M. Turner, and I am running to be your Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board at Large Commissioner. I'm running because of my connection to our parks. They run very deep. I learned to ride my bike in Falwell Park, won a basketball championship at Creekview Park, and now as an adult, I'm still out there on those same fields playing in an adult kickball league. Our parks have been part of every stage of my life, shaping how I lead, how I serve, and how I build community. As an instructional coach and an IB coordinator, I help teachers and scholars grow. Just like our parks help families and neighborhoods thrive. That's the kind of leadership I bring. One rooted in access, equity, and belonging. Parks for all, paths for all, seasons for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make a quick announcement that the audience questions that the question handlers will pick up will be taken until 5:45. So for our first question, what do you see as the most important role the park system plays in the life of Minneapolis residents, and how would you strengthen that role or alter it? And we'll begin with candidate Frederick.
Just writing the question down. So my number one priority as a commissioner will be our youth. I think that our Minneapolis park system serves our community in lots of brilliant ways, but our current park board has moved youth from a number one priority to a number three priority. And what we see with that are moves away from actionable items into more of a studied approach. And we know what gaps exist already in our park system. We've been studying those gaps for the last 20 years. So it is my mission as a park commissioner to reinstate youth and the opportunities that our young people have to grow up in our park system as a number one priority, which includes reinvesting in programs like Teen Teamworks, which give youth all across the city an opportunity to find employment in our parks and engage in outdoor green spaces.
Thank you. Candidate Dogwillow.
Yeah, I guess overall, I'm running because I have an hypothesis. I still believe that people believe in connections, and I believe in meeting people. I guess I'm extroverted. And I think neighborhood parks are the best thing that we have going in Minneapolis. I've lived in other places, and my hypothesis is, and based on my lived experience as well as some of the data, but that if we get more people to the parks, we're able to build more organic connections. We're able to help the city grow and have a strong brand, and that, you know, obviously that pays long-term dividends for health and safety and all the good things about the community. And I just really want more neighbors meeting each other and building a connection with each other. I'm kind of hyper-focused on setting an attendance metric. That's kind of my number one thing that I think I can provide to the park board. I have a tech background, and I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit to really help make people's parents' lives specifically easy. I think ultimately we get more kids, we get them engaged at the parks, we teach them new personal skills, and we get them excited to learn about environmental issues as well. Thanks.
Candidate Turner.
Thank you for that question. I believe the most important role the parks play is to develop equitable park policies, hire a superintendent who's willing to listen to all people who report to them, and then manages a budget that changes lives. And it just goes back to some of my things that I'm running my campaign on in terms of how equity, how accessibility, and how climate resilience plays in that. And I feel like a part of that comes from and how we as commissioners can make sure that it's happening is by receiving feedback in all the decisions that we make, and making sure that there are multiple rounds of feedback for us to be able to make the best decision possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Forney.
Thank you. I always remind people and everything is that we are a city inside of a park. I was very, very conscientious, okay? And although we don't all have full access, and that is what I will be advocating for, as I have been in the past 16 years. And that is, there are, over 23 miles of public lakeshore, but it's all in the south and southwest areas, okay? It's not in the north and northeast. And yet we have one of the most iconic rivers running through that area. And that is where I will be working to continue to advocate access to that body of water for all. And also improve our canopy. That's the thing that to me is really essential. And on top of it, as I've always said, alternative forms of funding to take the burden off of you, the taxpayers.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
Yes,
What I would look to for the most important role for residents is when I'm talking to people, when I mention that the parks are our third spaces, that really resonates. Making sure that every resident feels that Minneapolis Parks are theirs and they belong there through community connections. Now that is especially with youth, and I would say that I would like to continue what this current board has done in closing the gap since 2019, guaranteed funding for youth programming at $2.6 million every year. I would also like to say that with feedback, I was part of the Parks for All comprehensive plan, and there is a robust feedback robust feedback process. However, people don't all come to it, and I would like, with community connections, to bring people together to their parks, maybe a parks night out or something where they can all come together and find out about all the programs that they're doing in our parks.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider?
Our parks are the heart of our city. Not only do they deliver meaningful resources and programming, specifically youth programming to families, but it brings a lot of pride to the city. We are number 3 in the nation. So I like to think of the park board as managing our pride and joy for our entire city. That said, we are only number 3 for a reason. Our park system is horribly inequitable in the way we have developed green spaces, and one thing that I'm looking forward to is expanding green spaces in our working class diverse neighborhoods so that we can become number 1 again. So ultimately, I just think our park board is meant to make people's lives happier and easier and make us feel more connected, but our system so far hasn't done that, and I'm looking to take up that role.
Thank you. Candidate Olson?
Yeah, this is, it's a good question. It's kind of indicative, I was going to say it's impossible really to say if there's one single priority of our park board. You heard a different answer from each one of us here, and I've had thousands of conversations with constituents and voters, and every single one of us has a different special connection with our park system. I will say, I think on a base level, connection to nature, connection to green spaces, connections to community, that is kind of our, bottom of the pyramid. I think we do a fairly great job at that. We do need to expand that to other communities. We need to find ways of increasing our investments and making sure that green space is equitably dispersed. Right now, that is not the case. But I think as we have, created these great spaces, we then have to open them up and make them more accessible to folks. And that is kind of the new priority of the park board and what is most important for us moving forward.
Thank you. Our next question is in the area of youth programming and services. And we'll begin with Candidate McKelvey. What is your top priority for engaging and supporting youth and family programs in our parks? And how would you ensure that all communities, including those who have been marginalized and underserved, have access to these programs?
So with the youth programming, especially in places where people have been underserved, it's a long-term relationship. We need to be there, and we need to be present. We need to be listening to what the people of that community want, and there's going to be different needs in every park and rec center. And I look forward to working with rec center directors and asking them specifically what is succeeding and what could be improved. What resources do you need? How can I help you? And being on the ground where the communities are most impacted.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider?
So the first thing that around a youth programming that I'm interested in expanding is the Recreation Plus childcare program. I kind of mentioned this in my intro, but it's essentially a daycare program, and it's the most affordable in the city. I've had the chance to talk to a few Rec Plus workers, and they love the program, but there is a huge and growing demand for it. So I would love to see not only an increase in staffing, but also more training for the staff. A lot of them are teachers, and it's their side gig, so they have those class management skills, but I would love to make sure the staff that that isn't their day job can also develop some of those skills as well. The other half of what I want to talk about is around youth sports. We just implemented centralized registration, and a lot of indigenous and Black-led groups felt like they were being excluded from that. This is admittedly an issue that I do need to do more research on, but making sure that they're included and can partake in the youth sports across the city is vitally important.
Thank you. Candidate Dogwillow?
Yeah. Not a day goes by that I don't meet another parent who has a horror story about what it's like trying to get to a game or how they've been scheduled. Ultimately, I think we have great programs. I just think there's a huge opportunity in making them more findable and making them easy to be registered for. As a parent, I've got 2 kids and it takes like 6 logins to get things. My background's in tech, and the reason I'm motivated to do this is because I know that I can make a difference. It's a very specific lane, but I think it's a very valuable lane that will ultimately result in a way larger number of people coming to the parks, way more people using the parks, and ultimately having an opportunity to bring people together and share in the culture and shared values. Specifically, I believe in proven systems. One thing that I really, really am a fan of as a parent, I'm a big fan of Jonathan Haidt. He wrote This Anxious Generation. He's got a free organization called letgrow.org, and you can go there, you get free programming. I really, as I've learned from this campaign, talking to the park directors, that they really are valuable in this situation, so I would empower them and set the attendance metrics so that they can do their best work.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick?
So as I mentioned, youth are, I believe, our #1 priority as a park system. And I'm glad we were talking about youth sports as well, because I plan to focus on the, recreation side of our youth programming. Right now, Minneapolis Public School Systems has a Title IX complaint out against the city for inequitable access for girls softball versus baseball fields. And that's something I know the Park Board has been introducing plans to reconcile with, but it is something that I take very seriously as somebody who is very focused on equity. So engaging parents and players in those conversations around youth sports. I also strive to create a youth advisory board where we can have kids from across the city sit and advise us on what it is that they need. What do they want to see from the park system, and how can we deliver that to them?
Thank you. Candidate Olson?
Yeah, so when I think about access to our youth programming, I think about barriers. I think about it being our job to identify those barriers and use our resources to remove them. One barrier is financial cost. And we initially had a free programming program that we tried to pilot, we tried to work through, and we found that it was not fully successful, so we have transferred to a sort of pay-as-you-go system. That is new. We are seeing how that works. It's our job as commissioners to be critical and analytical of that and see if it's really doing a good job of reducing that barrier. Another barrier, I think, is understanding and that you have this wealth of resources available to you. So I think we need to do a better job of going out into communities, meeting folks where they are. And I think a lot of that is partnering with our school system and doing much better than we have of really getting into classrooms, getting in front of parents and saying, here are resources available for you and your kids.
Thank you. Candidate Forney?
Thank you. I am really proud and grateful that this board has made the commitment to the largest investment we've ever made, and that's into North Commons. This area has the largest population of youth in the state, and how critically important it is to give them a facility that reflects their engagement that we all need to have. I'm going to just indicate that when Superintendent Bangora first suggested our Spark Studios, I was a bit skeptical. But I realized the important thing is we need to go to where the kids are. And the reason why Spark Studios in particular is so good is it's really about those one-on-one relationships that our staff and volunteers develop with those kids. And that's what's important, to engage our youth proactively, robustly, and that's the things that we've been doing.
Thank you. Candidate Turner?
Thank you for your question. My top priority when it comes to supporting youth and families is, for one, to expand on the partnership that the board currently has with Minneapolis Public Schools. There's currently only one meeting that they have to meet with one another, and as someone who was a product of Minneapolis Public Schools, I was a scholar there, graduated from Southwest High School, and as someone who worked at the formerly known as Patrick Henry High School, now Camden High School, I see how those connections can be built. I also want to touch on how I'm a licensed elementary education teacher. So I'm having conversations constantly with families and youth and seeing the connection that the parks have and like how that we can build on those within our park systems and our recreation spaces. Last but not least, when it comes to families in underserved communities and having access, I'm the only Black woman who was in this at-large commissioner race. So I am one of those kids who came from an underserved community. And with that, I think the most thing that I can do is just continue to show up, listen, and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next category of questions are on environmental stewardship. And we'll begin with Mr. Olson, or with Candidate Olson. How would you protect the natural environment and wildlife throughout the Minneapolis Park system and ensure all communities have equal access to nature in Minneapolis parks?
Yeah, well, so a lot of protection, I believe, begins in our urban environment with restoration, with redeeming past wrongs, past ills. That's why I was incredibly proud to support the Hiawatha 9-hole plan, which will be restoring critical wetlands. That'll be an amazing opportunity as well to introduce species that used to inhabit Bidet Piscine and our amazing Minnehaha watershed area. As far as expanding it, we are doing this work. We, as Commissioner Forney has mentioned, we are building up along Graco, we're building up along Upper Harbor Terminal, and I see our role as continuing to go up the river. But within that, there is more that we should do, and there are areas that are not along the river that need better green space. For instance, think of southeast Minneapolis and northeast Minneapolis, a very industrial area, an area that's transforming really quickly. And we as a park board have to identify now, while there's good available land, ways of finding and purchasing new green space, and I think that's a critical role of ours.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey?
So for protecting natural areas of environment and wildlife, there's some low-hanging fruit. One is to let the people of Minneapolis know that wildlife and environment is here with signage, with education. I bring youth to Eloise Butler Wildflower Garden, and when those kids see what's going on, their wonder and awe will make them environmental stewards into the future. The ecological restoration of our 7,000 acres of parkland, working on that, I would support increasing natural areas management staff because I have heard that the increase of 2 managers has multiplied what our friends and volunteers can do in our parks, and the more that we are protecting it, as someone said, when we do a little bit, nature can do a lot, and we can work together.
Thank you. Candidate Turner?
Thank you for your question. First things first, kind of similar to what Mary said, education goes a long way. And I think that it's super important that, as me being a health educator, I wouldn't be right without saying that we have to lean on the people who are indigenous to this land. They've been doing it for years in terms of preserving our natural resources, and I don't believe that we need to reinvent the wheel. I think that it's just super important that we listen to the experts of not only preserving the natural resources and when it comes to access, but trust that they will lead us boldly and proudly. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider?
So we definitely need to look at more restoration. I'm definitely in favor of acquiring more properties, partnering with the city, and leveraging their vacant lots program, targeting properties, vacant properties along the riverside, as well as in partnering with our indigenous community partners like we have at St. Anthony Falls. But I also like to highlight a lot of the smaller stewardship practices that we can implement across the city. So I always love to mention pollinator corridors and pathways, expanding the urban tree canopy, and one big focus of that for me is replacing the trees that we lost to emerald ash borer, as well as implementing more rain gardens to help filter out pollutants in our stormwater.
Thank you. Candidate Forney.
Thank you. Our environmental stewardship department, is one of the largest portions of our budgets. And I'm very proud of that, and that tells me that's where our real priority is with that. I'm very grateful, I was going to say, Theodore Wirth is definitely a saint, shall we say, in our system. But unfortunately, we're having to undo an awful lot of the things that he implemented. And I'm very grateful that we have a very strong relationship with our watersheds, and the watersheds have been helping us funding in addressing a lot of the issues that were caused as a result of man thinking they could control nature. So that's one of the big things that we've been working on and will continue to work on. I value so much, though, also our volunteers, and we need to proactively keep the funding, escalating them each year as far as the amount that we spend in overseeing those wonderful volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
One of the most important things when it comes to ecologic preservation for the park board, I believe, is creating roles dedicated to servicing these areas of our systems. So I would be in favor of supporting 1 or 2 roles that are dedicated to overseeing our parklands. I also believe that, like other candidates have mentioned, we are attempting to restore something that has been overtaken by our city. And indigenous cultures, Dakota people, are the original stewards of this land. So I think that when it comes to ecologic preservation, we need to not just start there, but build those relationships right. We need to build back right with our land. And I think that including science and including indigenous wisdom into that practice is the only way that we're going to make a sustainable future for the 7 generations that come after us.
Thank you. Candidate Dogwillow.
Yeah, I guess I really believe in the value of experts and science and opinions. I don't consider myself a wildlife expert. I would say, though, that I've had the opportunity to travel around to parks all over the city, and I've seen how there's different cultural impacts on each park. I had an opportunity to go to North Minneapolis, and I loved it. And I loved it because there were all these kids there just having a good time, and they've almost established this culture where those kids could be at home watching screens, but they choose to go there because they know they're having a good time and they know they're having fun. And I think that's a huge opportunity, because the biggest impact that we can have, the best use of taxpayer dollars, is to make sure, and honestly, I think where the real impact will be is when those kids really have love for the outdoors and for the community and for, other animals. I guess it's kind of like a zoo philosophy where you keep these animals locked up and you have to sacrifice a couple animals to be able to get all these thousands of kids to be enjoying the animals and really form a connection. And then all of a sudden we have the next great scientist in whatever field. Stop.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Candidate Frederick. As a commissioner, what would be your top 3 priorities for the park board to help alleviate the impact of climate change and improve sustainability?
Just had to take a minute to think. When it comes to sustainability and climate equity, I believe we can look at programs that already exist within the park structure and think about how we can re-envision them. One of my priorities would be to do away with the carbon offset program that we currently have at the park board. What that is Xcel Energy and large corporations receive cuts in the taxes that they pay for the park board implementing planting trees. But what we know is happening is those trees are, they weren't planted originally and then they started to be planted, but we don't see that recoup fast enough. And we are in an energy climate crisis. So I would look there first. I would also then look to, like I mentioned, restoring and working with indigenous communities so that we can do right with the relationships that we have, and then electrifying our fleet of tools and vehicles that are used by the park management system so that we can use renewable energy.
Thank you. Candidate Doug Willow.
Cool. Well, climate change is actually one of my biggest personal political issues. I biked here, I installed solar in 2018, but I did all those things because that's the lifestyle I want to live. I actually think the parks, I guess kind of revisiting my last statement about educating kids and getting them excited, educating them on being environmental stewards. My real connection to being an environmental steward comes from a class that I had a long time ago, and we were supposed to manage our water use and take a, it was like a journal of our water use. And that really connected to me to what I use and how I can impact the world. And I think everybody should be making smart decisions. I read an article about University of Pennsylvania, and they basically in 1995 decided to make smart decisions. They weren't going to invest huge in climate change, but they were going to make smart decisions every time they built a new building, every time they made an improvement. They were going to do that, considering climate change. And they've done it, and they've paid for it, and they service twice the number of people with half the amount of energy required. So I think it more comes down to getting kids, the biggest investment we can make is getting kids excited and understanding the impact that they have for climate.
Thank you. Candidate Forney. Candidate Forney.
Thank you. I'm really proud of the fact that we have the first net zero building in the system. That's our great goal, or excuse me, I call it the River Hub. And to me, that's so exciting. It speaks to our commitment. One of the really cool things about it is the fact that our sidewalks are geothermal heated. So therefore, there's no salt, there's no sand that's going into our Mississippi. Now, those are the types of things that our staff is constantly thinking outside of, their envelope. Trees, to me, are also so critical. I can't say it enough and everything. Where we have heat islands, where we have air quality that's diminished, is in areas where there are not trees, and that's particularly along what we call above the falls along the Mississippi. We need to dedicate growing our canopy and sustaining it in those areas because people are suffering. They really are, and that's something we can do because we are the ones who are in charge of trees, public trees.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider.
So one of the first climate actions I would love to look into is installing more solar on park facilities. We haven't done this since 2018, and currently there are inflation reduction tax credits that are about to expire next summer, that if we don't take advantage of them, they go away. I suggest following a plan similar to the Minneapolis school boards, where they essentially lease out their rooftops for solar and have a purchase agreement to buy that solar cheaper than what the energy would otherwise cost. Right now, we exclusively get our solar from wind power generated through Xcel Energy at a premium. So not only would this be a huge emissions reduction and actively greening the grid, it would also be a huge cost-saving function. Next thing, I want to expand our community garden program. I will be talking about that a lot. But not only does it help with carbon sequestration, but it honestly just saves us a ton of emissions when you grow food closer to where you eat it. Last thing, expand the urban tree canopy. I am out of time.
Thank you. Candidate Turner.
Thank you for that question. My first priority would be to push for the superintendent to ensure before any proposal is brought to us that they are in partnership with indigenous experts. And my second priority would be to be a voice that consistently pushes for feedback to make sure a program that comes out of a park policy is not just sustainable just for the looks, but for the next generations to come. And last but not least, I will continue to support policies that fund programs like the Carbon Offset Credit Program. While supporting, be willing to have conversations to know that intent versus impact is huge, and how we can address that by having courageous conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Yeah, number one, I think we have to set vehicle mile travel reduction goals for ourselves. VMT, carbon pollution, a lot of it comes from transit and transportation. So that would include things like increasing transit access to our parks. That would include things like piloting programs to periodically pedestrianize our parkways to kind of reassess our connection with our parks and our system, and thus reduce our carbon output in that regard. Number two, I really think we need to stick to the plans that we have. There was a case where the last park board decided to overturn a plan that would have converted asphalt and parking space into green space. That is strong climate action. Unfortunately, folks in the community wanted to keep the status quo, and the park board went back on its priorities. Acting boldly on climate change means to act boldly on climate change. Lastly, kind of as Commissioner Forney said, I think, our new buildings that we build, that we reconstruct, we have to ensure that they are zero carbon, and that should be the new standard for us moving forward.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
There are so many things with climate change. As a member of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed Advisory Committee and of the Parks for All Comprehensive Plan, it became clear to me that what they were working for towards the future was preparing for a warmer, wetter, and more extreme weather climate. So the first place I would look to is water and wetlands, and I agree with improving wetlands in the Hiawatha golf course area. I also approve of, along the Minnehaha Creek watershed area, improving wetlands to manage water. Electrified vehicles, yes. Tree canopy, yes. Vehicle miles traveled. Commissioner Olson, should we both serve on the board? Let's go carbon-free to and from the meetings. We both are going to go southwest to northeast, and it won't be easy. It'll be in the winter. But who else to lead than people like us who don't have small children or abilities to, or we're not disabled in any way, so we should do that.
Thank you. Now we're going to do a lightning round question. So this is just a yes or no. I'll ask the question, and we'll just have you go down the table alphabetically, starting with candidate Dogwillow. Do you support dedicating 1% of the park's budget to manage the park's natural areas?
Yes.
Yes.
Just yes or no?
Just yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, that fits our mission.
Yes.
Yes, that should be a floor, not a cap.
Thank you for that question. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to budget funding priorities and fiscal management. What new or alternative funding models would you pursue, other than relying predominantly on property tax levies, to fund them and fund the maintenance and improvement of Minneapolis parks? And we'll start with candidate Schneider.
Well, similar to my climate change answer, I definitely do want to look into the solar option. That would not only save costs, but if we put aside the money that we save, potentially generate revenue in the future. I've also been looking at some policies that the park board has around how it works with businesses, and particularly businesses like food trucks. There's a lot of reform that can happen there, and I think that would be a huge amount of revenue, but I think we could bring in a substantial amount while helping small businesses grow their own business.
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Yeah, there are a lot of things we can do. I think, number one, something good that this park board has done is we started an endowment in partnership with the Minneapolis Parks Foundation, which should be paying dividends for us in the future. And I think we could probably spark that. An idea that I've been tossing around in my head is Meadowbrook Golf Course. It is a golf course in St. Louis Park. It is there to make us money. It doesn't make very much money, and it doesn't serve very many Minneapolis residents. I would be for potentially the sale of that golf course and then putting the funds into our endowment and potentially match that with Minneapolis Parks Foundation funds, and we could start to see extreme dividends sooner rather than later. That'd be a fantastic way for us to increase services while reducing property taxes. There are many other things I think we can do. I would want to look at potentially working with our state partners to declare climate emergency, and so we can find new ways to raise revenue through things like taxing tickets in and out of MSP Airport that is on park land.
Thank you. Candidate Dogwillow.
Yeah. Overall, I really feel that Minneapolis is the greatest winter city and that we should be focused on branding us as such. Mostly because it's two parts. Mostly, I think we can start at a point of compromise, and two, we can talk about things that actually work. Because when we get more people coming back to the city, we create more funding opportunities. For example, I know that at Lake Harriet we have the swimming hole, we have we have a little the art shanties. Maybe we could have a little sauna village. Like, there's all these opportunities once more people start coming. And so to me, all of our problems really start with getting more people to come use the facilities that we offer, and then building around that. Once we have an extra couple hundred people coming into the city, we can have food trucks, we can have have fire pits, we could have other revenue generating opportunities. In Milwaukee, I guess I have a fond love for the beer gardens that they have there as well. I saw how that was a big generator as well of people as well as revenue. And I think that we could do a much better job with a couple of A-level sports facilities. I know the girls from 612 end up having to travel to Hudson all the time, and it'd be fun to just get other people coming back to watch their kids and cheer on their kids from the metro.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
I think for new and alternative revenue sources, it's really important that you have a 9-member board that is pragmatic and is a cheerleader for the Minneapolis Park system as a leader in the whole state. It brings tourism in, and we should leverage that money. And if we're a pragmatic group, we can work better with intergovernmental relations. We can get more philanthropic agencies to want to donate to our programs that will and to our programs that we can market better, frankly. We've got a lot going on. It's on all the Chamber of Commerce stuff. We should be getting more income outside of property taxes for all that we offer, and I will be looking into partnerships and ways to leverage that.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
I'm proud to be endorsed by some of these partnerships that we are talking about today. So I'm proud to be endorsed by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Commissioner Angela Conley, State Representative Sidney Jordan, and I believe that having working relationships across governmental entities provides all of the park board that partnership. So creating and sustaining revenue streams outside of property taxes looks like a lot of the things mentioned, but I believe that having the ability to work with and to communicate to other partners is a strong priority of mine. I also believe that we can shift our focus back to where we will see those dividends come back. And I will go back to youth programming. Investing in youth and investing in the connections that they have to their community will see results that do save us money down the line.
Thank you. Candidate Turner.
As a former college student, graduate student, and still an active professional student, the first thing that comes to my mind is working with our partners in terms of getting grants. being able to qualify and not have to give back. That's the number one. And then also support the endowment fund because it aligns with sustainability and giving back to the organization as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Forney?
I'm very grateful that in the 12 years that I've been serving, we have activated 8 new revenue sources. It's not enough. We are the 5th largest metropolitan budget in the state of Minnesota. And as we all know, Minneapolis is the economic engine for the city. But we're not getting our fair share. And that's really important for us to be able to convey to the legislature and everything that we're an essential service. We really are. We all found out during the pandemic that basically we could do without a downtown. Basically we could do without even mass transportation. But we found out that our parks are essential services. And I think that's really important to make sure we get what we need. And I have long-term relationships with our legislature. Scott Dibble and I, well, anyway, that's a long story. But we discovered that we were, as he put it, orphans when it came to his transportation bill. And he was able this past legislative session to fill that gap.
Thank you. Our next question regards land back and cultural heritage. Land acknowledgements that celebrate and honor the indigenous people and nations that initially inhabited the land that is now the Minneapolis Parks are a starting point for addressing historical, social, and racial injustices. As a commissioner, what, if anything, will you do to continue returning Minneapolis Park land back to management by indigenous nations and people? And we'll start with Candidate Forney.
Thank you for that question. We are witnessing probably to me one of the most exciting things, and that is the transfer of land at the Lock and Dam to Owamni, Yomni, Okoreapi. Got it out. Anyway, to me that is incredibly exciting because they are going to be investing in programming that is true to that constituency in their honoring of, as they say it, and we should be saying it, our relatives. That's huge. And the other thing I was going to say is that we have also, during our term, we have had an indigenous liaison who's working very proactively with our indigenous community to make sure that their voices are heard. And I will continue to advocate for the funding of that liaison to make sure that they will be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider.
So the first bit of, well, not the first bit, I'm very excited with the partnership that we have at St. Anthony Falls. Forgive me, I forget the indigenous name. But the next bit that I would like to look at is giving the Little Earth community ownership over Cedarfield Park. I worked with the Little Earth community for 2 years, and whenever the park board sent a representative, the residential advisory board asked, when can we get it? They're the ones who mainly use it, and I think that's a pretty easy piece of land back. But I am also interested in working with our urban indigenous communities as well as communities across Minnesota to develop better policies and figure out how they would like that land back. So that's kind of where my priority would be, is to engage their urban offices, their local leaders, and just figure out what we can make happen.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
I will look to uplift indigenous, work with our indigenous relatives. And I've really enjoyed all that I've been learning on the campaign trail, and I'm excited about the Owamni structure on the how that is being operated, and how I want to learn more about how that is governed. I like that there's a technical advisory committee for that. I like that there's an indigenous action plan. I will center that. I will always be asking who's in the room that can represent, so we make sure that stewardship is also shared with our Dakota relatives. And I look forward to working on community gardens and I want to learn about land stewardship. This is something that I'm a learner from, and I'm keeping my eyes open, and I will make sure that we are acknowledging the history.
Thank you.
And the future.
Candidate Turner.
Thank you for this question. First things first is to learn the history of our land. Having conversations with folks like Mr. Harry Davis Jr., I had an opportunity to get great insight on the Lake Hiawatha Golf Course project, and truly it goes back to intent versus impact. As a park board commissioner, naming and recognizing that our system is not perfect and be a voice to the board that truly pushes for empathy, not sympathy, and make informed decisions based on that or just simply not knowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Yeah, so our partnership with Owamniani Okidiapi is a fantastic start and something that we absolutely need to build off of and look to for future progress. But I do think that there's more within our Indigenous Action Plan that we have been pursuing that we can do, and I think that the ultimate goal of land back is an absolute priority. It is kind of the synthesis of everything that we are hoping to achieve here. There are models proven. Vancouver did it successfully. Minnesota Department of Natural Resources has done it successfully, and I believe we can do it successfully as well. Cedar Field, absolutely a good option, but I do believe that there are actually spaces within our park system that could be better suited for kind of grander ambitions, because our urban native community needs more than just access to nature. It needs more than just kind of this sort of, these sort of noble savage tropes, right, of just connection to nature. It is deeper than that. It is, more that we can do. And within that, when we do land back, we have to make sure that we're doing the groundwork, that it is successful. If we do it haphazardly and it's a failure, that's on us. And so I want to make sure that we're doing things right when it comes to land back.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
The first thing that I would do was reestablish the Indigenous liaison position to full-time. Yes, it exists. It is currently at a part-time position. So reestablishing that as a full-time position on day one. And long-term, I believe that moving from a technical advisory council to a full-time Indigenous council that we can serve alongside or serves inside the room with the park board is modeled in other countries. And I believe as stewards, to be good stewards of the land, again, we have to go back to who the original stewards of this land are. So I think that if we are going to be true to our word as commissioners, that end goal of bringing the Dakota and Indigenous leaders into the room to make those decisions and not having to go through the park board will be my goal end of term one.
Thank you. Candidate Dogwillow.
I've kind of learned some hard lessons in my career that some people are better at other things than others. And, honestly, this really isn't my area of expertise. I think if you're for everything, you're for nothing. And for me, I guess, my focus is on neighborhood and those connections that can be made. And so I value those communities and I value their rights and their voices. And I, especially as Native American, especially if they plan on programming or other things that bring people down and are giving people education. If I have to spitball something, I guess I would say I like the idea of like QR education stuff. That's just taking it off of, places that have done that. But, having, little points of interest where people can go on walks and feel part of a connection to the land via those stories, I think would be really powerful. But mostly, I guess I prefer my value to be sitting in the lane of what I know to be good.
Thank you. The next question is related to public safety. Are the current responsibilities of the park police the best to keep us safe in our parks? Should the relationship with MPD be reconsidered? We'll start with Candidate Olson.
Yeah, so, I think I have a good relationship with our chief, Jason Ohado. I think as far as current responsibilities of our park police, I believe that we really are targeting high crime areas, places like Elliott Park, Stevens Square, kind of making sure that we're using our limited resources really wisely. I think it's also important that we have a strong, independent park police department. We have stronger accountability, I believe. We as commissioners then can be more receptive to your needs. If you have issues with our police department, if you have issues with safety, if we have an independent park police, then we can hold them accountable, right? If that is somehow ingrained with the MPD, we lose that completely. I will also say, in conversations with our chief, we need to go beyond personnel. What I really want to do in this next term is explore a comprehensive lighting analysis of our park system, improving lighting, and just really getting to the bottom of that, because I think that is kind of number one infrastructure thing that we can do to make our parks safer.
Thank you. Candidate Turner.
So I would have to say that there's always room for improvement. And I'm not sure if the relationship with MPD directly would be best. But I do think that some of the resources in the direction that MPD is going in terms of mental health services, in terms of partnership, I think that that would be a good direction for us to also go in, because the parks are places for community, youth, and in order for all that to continue to function, policing has to look different. And it's super important that it's super important for us to understand that all emergencies aren't at the beck and call of a police officer. Sometimes you need someone who is there to be able to support with the crisis in terms of health, in terms of mental health, and I think that those resources would benefit the Park Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dog Willow.
Yeah, overall, I mean, obviously parks have to be safe and they have to be welcoming for everyone. I believe in the value of green spaces and the values that it can provide to mental health. I also am pretty against people, I'm all for us all following the rules that we've established as required to be followed for the benefit of the majority. I would prefer not to see encampments coming back, and I would prefer to see, us focused on the mission of getting more people. And again, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but I know I've mentioned attendance, but I know that as you get a lot more people, there are a lot fewer crimes, and there's people watching out for each other. I mean, I just want a spot where my kids can go and run and play together and just have a good time, and I want them to be able to feel safe doing that. And I think when you have other kids there, especially at various ages, that they feel that way and they want to go because it's fun. So I'm definitely supportive of all the police. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
Yes, I went on a ride-along, and I was really impressed with the police officer I was riding with. I respect the work that they do, and I think that right now citizens don't really understand the difference between what Minneapolis Police does and Park Police does. But I do know that in District 5, Park Police are often the first ones to the scene because of a gap currently with the Minneapolis Police Department. Like Candidate Dogwillow said, activated parks, activated trails are safer. I would certainly look for all other methods to keep us safe, including supporting Street Reach or community connections and violence prevention teams to go to places where there is a crisis that might be happening either with mental health or with someone who just needs something, and the first person that they should look to is not someone who is armed.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
In regards to MPD, I believe that there is a systemic need to deal with the way that MPD functions within our city. And I think that part of our role as park commissioners is to examine what our force looks like as well. So partnering with Councilmember Oreen Chowdhury, I would be happy to discuss the future of a park police that looks more like a park ranger system. Because I believe that we need informed officials. We need people who are connected to our parkways. And when we have the ability as a community to respond precisely instead of respond broadly to issues, we can respond to what our constituents need better. Now, it will take communication between council members, the mayor, and MPD in order to make this happen, but I think ultimately park rangers would be more serviceable inside of the parks.
Thank you. Candidate Forney.
I find the use of the word reconsider fascinating. We are constantly reconsidering, and I say that in a huge growth way. A year ago, over 4th of July, some really horrible things happened at Bodega and at Boom Island. Because of the collaborative approach with the MPD, with Hennepin County, with all the various jurisdictions, Metro Transit, et cetera, they came up with a very robust response way of dealing with something potentially that happened there. And consequently, it was a very safe 4th of July, and I'm very, very proud of the work that our park police continually do. Also, we rely so much upon the Minneapolis police for investigations, for forensics. So it is a network that it works very, very well for our community, and I'm very proud of their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider.
My approach to public safety is based on the idea of policing by consent, where the authority and legitimacy of the police comes from trust rather than by fear. I think the way that the park board in particular can do to address this is creating procedure and policy to make sure our park police do not simply stay in their vehicles. I do not say this cynically, but it is the #1 concern of public safety that I hear from residents. Whenever I'm out knocking on the door, I've heard from dozens of people, completely unprompted, where they just sit in their cars. People want beat police officers again. They want officers walking. They want to know their names, and they want the officers to know theirs. They want to form those community connections. And yeah, I think it would mean adopting more of something like a park ranger model where, yeah, they are potentially unarmed. Perhaps they're passing out water on a hot day, but they're forming that trust so that when trouble does occur, people feel comfortable going to them.
Thank you. Now we'll move into workplace trust and collaboration. As commissioner, how would you restore and strengthen trust and collaboration between the park board and its employees? And we'll begin with candidate Dog Willow.
In my career, I found a lot of success by really helping people focus and become aligned around a central mission. I believe that most workers really want to do a good job and they want to feel that they have value. And I think it's really important that we try to engage them in seeing the outcome of their work. How that looks, I guess, is more of a, I've learned that it's more of a bespoke thing for many of the workers. But ultimately, I think it revolves around empowering them to do the best work and give them the opportunity. One thing I've really learned from campaigning and talking to a bunch of different people is how important the park directors are to, you get a good park director, good park, bad park director, not so good a park. And I really think the opportunity to empower them to focus, to make their goals clear, centered on attendance, and empower them to develop programming, in my opinion, informal programming, like free play groups, a la Jonathan Haidt, but really any kind of programming that they really feel would best meet their needs of their community, like free soccer. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider.
So, with the last year's park workers strike, it seems like a lot of bridges were burned between on-the-ground park worker staff and management. I've had the chance to talk to dozens of park workers, and even though there is now a contract in place until 2027, it doesn't sound like the attitudes in the workplace have gotten better. So I'm really looking forward to directly talking with the workers who do the work on the ground and implementing policy, and if necessary, collaborating with the superintendent to create a better staff structure so that we don't deal with personality issues, that people don't have to face discrimination in the workplace, that we deal with the issues that effectively push a lot of our workers out.
Thank you. Candidate Forney.
It shows up our collaboration, our dedication to our employees in our budget. And I'm very proud of the fact that the budget that's been put forward for 2026 and everything, priority number one was wage and fringe. I'm very, very proud of that. The other thing is that our next two things that we also supported was for Graco and for the Upper Harbor to support 9 1/4 employees that were not servicing those areas. And to me, that's a real reflection of where our priorities are. And I say that because in last year, the very, very last meeting, the least transparent of all, 3 youth staff were removed from our budget. So please keep your eyes on us to make sure that we hold to those commitments that we've already reflected in our levy request. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
The strike was abysmal. I'll say that. In 140 years, under President Trump, the park workers had to strike for the first time ever in history. And I don't think that that's just a coincidence. I think being honest about what makes our parks great looks like supporting workers at every front. I am proud to be supported by I won't say all, sorry, major unions such as MRLF, AFL-CIO, MFE, AFSCME, and many other labor unions, and I'm a proud product of a labor union myself. So my commitment is to workers, and if you share in that belief, I encourage you to look towards commissioners that you're about to elect. If you believe that it is a miscommunication between workers and the board, you have no business sitting on a board that communicates with workers.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
I look forward to collaborating with our park workers. I'm a fresh face, and I think that will help. I am pro-union. I've been a member of a union, and I was standing with MFE workers yesterday at the rally. I think it's really important to support the fair wages, benefits, and training, and I will keep the door open. And just as a human to human, I want to find out, I'm really curious about, they're doing the work. I want to find out about all the work that our arborists, that our rec center people are working on. I'm going to reach out. When I've been campaigning, the forestry outreach arborist was out there at some of the open streets, and I just said, "Hey, tell me about your job." And she said, "You know, you're the first commissioner candidate who's come over and asked me that, and I'll keep the door open."
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Yeah, so I think number one, we have to be commissioners who are meeting with our workers whenever they request. In my first term, I believe I was one of the few commissioners who met with our workers every single time they made that request, because that's a priority. One of those times, some workers kind of described to me some issues that they were having with management, with staff. I relayed those issues to Superintendent Bangora, kind of hoping to spark a conversation of how we can rebuild this trust. He immediately kind of shot back with an accusation of his own back towards those workers. And, maybe he was correct in his assessment. But what that tells me is that we continue to teeter on a cliffside towards another labor disaster. So what we need to do is we need a labor relations board. We need to have that medium for rebuilding bridges that involves commissioners. I also believe that commissioners should have the responsibility of sitting in on contract negotiations, not commenting, not giving input, but being there as neutral observers so that we can be your eyes and ears in these situations. During that strike, it was very difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Turner?
So I would say being consistent and persistent, extremely persistent. When it comes to asking the superintendent about ways they are building relationship, as park board commissioners, we manage the superintendent. So the formal conversations and informal conversations will give me an opportunity to truly just pick their brain. We have to show up for them, first thing and foremost. You have to show up, even when it's a situation that can be uncomfortable. We have to show up and let them know that we're there for them. And then also get feedback. With us showing up, have those conversations, continue to get their feedback, and continue to push whatever they're saying to us, to the superintendent, let them know, like, hey, did you know this? Did you hear this? And I think that will help with restoring and strengthening the trust among the staff, the superintendent, and also us as commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now beginning to wrap up. We've got time for one more question before closing statements. This time, the answers will be limited to 30 seconds in the interest of time, because we do have another forum coming behind ours. So the first question will go to, Candidate Turner. How can the board do a better job listening to residents and community groups, especially busy families with children and traditionally marginalized communities, when making decisions about programs and park planning?
Thank you for that. I actually love that question. Just being out and campaigning and meeting folks, you hear kind of a similar trend. I didn't know that was happening. And it was just like, okay, so how can we improve on, yes, maybe we communicate one way or have a way to be able to get the information out, but how are we making sure that we're going to them? They shouldn't always have to come to us into our meetings or have to watch them on a live stream. I think it's very important that we get out there, and there are various ways to be able to receive the communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Yeah, so I think we do need to do a better job of putting funds, putting investments, and going out in the community and soliciting folks to come and be a process of our CACs, a process of our long-range planning processes. Those are very good processes. Those are very good equity-informed processes that I think have a good baseline. We just need to get more folks to be aware of them in there. And then when they make those decisions and those plans, we as commissioners have to stick with them and not betray those plans in the final moments.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
One of the first things I mentioned when it comes to youth was my aspiration to create a youth advisory board, and I believe that that would include youth from all corners of Minneapolis, which would allow us to have perspective there. Also, when it comes to increasing accessibility to the parks, increasing transit ways, and making sure that people from all corners, again, of the city are able to access our park systems.
Thank you. Candidate Schneider.
So there are two commitments I want to make, and I know that's dangerous for someone running for office. But the first one is that I want to go to at least one board meeting for every neighborhood organization in the city. That's 70 or so. They're natural forums to collect feedback and such. The other one is that every other month I want to go around to different districts and have a town hall, have some sort of open house with that district commissioner, just for people to give us feedback and whatever input they want to give. Those are two commitments I really want to make.
Thank you. Candidate Doug Willow.
I think I'm going to sound repetitive here, but I built a tech career on making things simpler. And I think, paying parents need to be able to sign up for things. Kids need to be able to get where they're going. Schedules have to align to parents' schedules. I really believe, I guess I've internalized the role of maybe myself running at large as someone who's supposed to oversee and work collaboratively with the districts, who should be hyper-focused on representing their district and the needs of their constituents, while I support them with overall strategy. And I guess that's kind of where I'd like to sit, is owning the lanes that I know that I'm good with.
Thank you. Candidate Forney.
I believe I'm the only one up here who's served on 6 community advisory committees, and I chair 2 of them. It was a couple decades ago. Anyway, how we have changed in those particular groups and everything, it's just been amazing. I'm very, very proud of our staff, and they're constantly evolving how it is that we do our citizen advisory engagement and everything. And one of the really important ones that I was really proud of is for Upper Harbor, where they came up with the concept of just green enough. They really listened to the community, and I'm very, very grateful for that commitment.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
As I've been campaigning, I am honored to have been introduced to and form relationships with many different groups. And in the work that I do, I reach out to marginalized communities. Actually, I'm present with marginalized communities, and I will always be asking who's not at the table with this this new registration system. If it's complicated for people, how can we in small areas make that a little simpler? Do we need to go to paper for seniors and for and some communities? In addition,
Thank you. So now we've got the 30-second closing statements. And we'll begin with Candidate Turner.
As I close, I want to remind you, our parks are more than green spaces. They're classroom, gathering places, and centers of community that deserve leaders who truly see the people they serve. I'm proud to be the only Black woman running for this at-large seat, and representation matters. So I'm asking you to rank me number 1 on November 4. If you've already voted and didn't rank me first, you can still visit the election and voters office by November 3rd to update your ballot. Together, we can ensure our parks remain spaces of connection, care, and community for everyone. Vote Avery M. Turner, Parks for All, Paths for All, Seasons for All. Thank you.
Candidate Schneider.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around for the past hour and a half. I hope this has been enlightening. As I hopefully enter the board, that's a bit wishful thinking, let's do this. I really want to hit the ground running, start looking at projects, programs, budgets, and as someone who has already delivered tangible results for people across Minneapolis, I hope you can put your trust in me, and I hope to continue to earn your vote as we head into these last few days of the election.
Thank you. Candidate Olson.
Often what I've been saying to folks on the doors is that 90% of this job is good stewardship. And the last 10% of that is progress. I believe that I have the institutional knowledge, I have the governing experience to be able to steward our parks wisely for the next generation, and I have the know-how and kind of new ideas needed to move our parks to successfully into the 21st century. So thank you for your time. I hope to earn your first choice vote, Tom Olson for Parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McKelvey.
thank you again. I'm Mary McKelvey, and I hope that in this discussion that you can see me as a trustworthy and authentic representative on your future park board. Thank you for the League of Women Voters. I have worked with you as well, and I appreciate your commitment to citizenship. I see myself as a citizen first, and apparently I'm a politician too, but I see myself more as a representative of you, and I hope to serve you and earn your #1 vote. Check out maryforparks.org and connect with me.
Thank you. Candidate Frederick.
Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Again, I'm Amber Frederick, proud to be your only DFL, Labor, and Women Winning Endorsed Candidate for Minneapolis Park Board at Large. I really long to serve. That's why I entered this race as someone who is a youth support specialist. I hope to be a voice for young people for generations to come through who can grow up strong in our park system and make that commitment to ensuring that everyone, no matter where you come from in this city, can find themselves in the park.
Thank you. Candidate Forney.
First of all, I want to thank the League. You guys, you do damn good things for the democracy, and I really appreciate your work and everything. Yes, Meg Forney. I have been a steward now for 12 years of our park system. That I like to brag about the fact that parks are essential services. Parks are the irresistible vibe of the city, and it is a city inside a park. And I want to continue to do that because I am absolutely passionate about our park system. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dogwillow.
Yeah, I'm mostly running because I love the city. I'm invested here. I'm raising my family here, and I think I can do a lot of good on the park board. I know my lane. I know where my struggles are when I sign up for programs and when I talk to other coaches and other people that are part of the sports programs specifically. But, you know, I'm a Jonathan Haidt convert. I follow a lot of the parenting stuff. I see value in kids just being allowed to go and play like kids again. And that's what I want to do. My lane is, you know, the tech side. I'm the only one with any kind of notable tech experience. And I know that I can fix the calendars and make it easier for people. That's pretty much what I want to do. I believe we have more people, we build more connections and more community.
Thank you. On behalf of all the co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and being willing to serve our community. We hope this forum has helped voters in Minneapolis make an informed decision with regard to the November 4th election. The top 3 vote getters will be elected to the Park and Recreation Board as at-large commissioners. Remember, we use ranked choice voting for this election, where you vote for candidates in order of your preference, allowing you to rank your vote, first choice, second choice, third choice. This method can allow your vote to count toward another candidate if your favorite candidate loses. If your first choice candidate is eliminated, your vote is moved to your second choice. Fair Vote Minnesota is here with us tonight and will gladly answer any questions you have. We also thank you, the audience, for your participation in this forum and the democratic process. We challenge you to think about what 3 things you can now do to further civic dialogue about issues and encourage participation in this important election. Nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting is also available at vote411.org. Early voting for the general election began on September 19th and ends Monday, November 3rd. The video recording of this forum will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website, lwvmpls.org. Editing of this video is authorized only for official media reporting. Footage cannot be used in campaign publicity or other partisan purposes. The recording is the property of the League of Women Voters Minneapolis. Please vote. Your vote is your voice and your power. At this point, you can show your appreciation for the candidates by your applause. Thank you and have a good evening.
He's been there all my life.
There. That one is not.